You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Today we're going to be looking at the book banners, that strange alliance of MAGA maniacs with some evangelicals and assorted other right-wing fanatics who are all too well organized to eviscerate everything from serious literature through critical race theory to books that simply help kids stay alive and sane. We're also going to be talking with my special guest for today's conversation. Former Congresswoman Elizabeth Holtzman is back again. She is simply one of the smartest, most ethical, and most insightful people I know. And we're going to be talking about the new razor slim majority that the MAGA-GOP folks have in Congress, what to really expect from them, and what we can do about it to keep a robust democracy. And then, of course, we have fighting words at the end of the program. But before we get started, we need to go inside the headlines. As Anthony Conright wrote in the January 27th issue of the African American Policy Forum, the demonization of critical race theory, which is only a way to analyze how racism gets codified into American law, that's pivotal to systemic racism. I'm indebted to him for a number of insights in the piece following. He points out that since 2020, conservatives have advanced legislative mandates in more than 24 states to ban the framework from K-12 schools in the name of causing students, quote, psychological distress, close quote. Texas is at the vanguard of the CRT crackdown, not just enacting curbs on teaching in classrooms, but also compiling exhaustive lists of banned books for state-funded schools. In October 2021, Texas GOP State Representative Matt Krause, who chairs the House Committee on General Investigating, to superintendents throughout the state, he sent a letter to gauge CRT's so-called seepage into school libraries. He finished his letter with an addendum of 850 books, instructing all Texas schools to tell his committee how many copies of each title they have and to itemize how much money they spend on the books. And he explained that he's instituting this far-reaching book ban to purge schools of materials that may cause, quote, discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress because of their race or sex, or convey that a student, by virtue of race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, period, close quote. Now, that consciously or unconsciously means that virtually any title or author is fair game under Krause's ban. Ironically, though, books written by pioneering critical race theorists like Kimberly Crenshaw and Derek Bell, the late Derek Bell, are notably absent. Why? Well, because Texas schools are not actually even teaching critical race theory, which means that Krause's list is a confession that conservatives are not attempting to whitewash history as much as setting out to rewrite it. And there is a clear precedent for this sort of crusade laid down by prior generations of the Confederacy and of the slave order defenders in the antebellum South. Michael Bernath, author of the book Confederate Minds, The Struggle for Intellectual Independence in the Civil War, chronicles the Confederacy's attempt to create a distinct culture from their Yankee adversaries. Bernath writes that in order to be permanent and meaningful, quote, the separation between North and South had to be cultural as well as political, close quote. One subject in question was the presence of books, quote, infected with abolitionism in Southern schools. Confederate propagandists saw this as a piece of the actual war between the Union and the South, an intellectual, academic pincer move that threatened the cultural success of the Southern war effort. Quote, they have left behind them a legacy of school books. Let us complete the work by banishing them from our land. The parallels with Krause's bid today to purge Texas schools of materials deemed too incendiary are obvious. Christopher Rufo, a leading voice in the mania over CRT, told Tucker Carlson in 2020 that CRT was, quote, an existential threat to the United States. You know, it's a theory, for one thing. Anyway, he goes on, and the bureaucracy, even under Trump, is being weaponized against core American values. I'd like to make it explicit, he says, the President and the White House, it is within their authority to immediately issue an executive order to abolish critical race theory training from the federal government, where it's not being taught. And I call on the President to issue this executive order immediately to stamp out this destructive, divisive, pseudoscientific ideology, period, close quote. But that appeal resonated with conservatives who, like Confederate book banners of 150 years ago, perceive of themselves as a colonized people, culturally oppressed by progressives. The Old South precedents are chilling. In 1861, George Nath, the president of Sewell Female College in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, wrote an essay denouncing certain textbooks as abolitionist propaganda that featured anti-slavery authors, bad people such as William J., John Quincy Adams, and Harriet Beecher Stowe. Demographic trends are in play throughout all this, too. The raging right-wing culture war over CRT represents a crucial effort to regain control over Republican districts that turned blue after the 2020 presidential election. Krause himself represents a district that's diversifying, and the tensions of that diversification are being translated into the politics of white grievance. A recent study from the University of Chicago showed the odds that a county would send an insurrectionist to the Capitol increase threefold for Americans who believed blacks and Latinx are overtaking whites, and they increased twofold among Americans who fear blacks and Latinx. People will have more rights than whites. But consistency hardly being their strong point, conservatives turned on a dime to embrace precisely the kind of top-down state mandates they have resisted over the course of COVID, for example. It's also crucial to recognize that as leaders on the American right trumpet against alleged trespasses by CRT in our schools, they deploy state power to police sexual identity and behavior among school-age kids. Text on abortion, for example. Health education programs in South Carolina are forbidden to discuss alternate sexual lifestyles from heterosexual relationships, except in the context of sexually transmitted diseases. In Louisiana, no sex education course offered in public schools can utilize any sexually explicit materials depicting male or female homosexual activity. In Oklahoma, AIDS prevention education must specifically teach students that, quote, engaging in homosexual activity is now known to be primarily responsible for contact with the AIDS virus, Close quote. Florida's health education program is devoted to teaching the benefits of monogamous heterosexual marriage, and so forth, and so on, ad nauseum. The Confederate book banners are alive and well, and not only in Texas. Those who do not understand history are doomed to repeat it. We need to take our first break here, but don't go away because I'll return directly with my special guest for today's conversation, Liz Holtzman. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Elizabeth Holtzman is an American attorney and politician who served in the United States House of Representatives from New York's 16th Congressional District as a member of the Democratic Party from 1973 to 1981. She then served as District Attorney of Kings County from 1982 to 89 and as the 40th Comptroller of New York City from 1990 to 1993. During her 4 terms as a U.S. Congresswoman, she captured national attention for her role on the House Judiciary Committee, where she voted to impeach President Richard Nixon and questioned President Ford about the Nixon pardon. She chaired the Immigration and Refugees Subcommittee, where she co-authored with Senator Ted Kennedy the Refugee Act of 1980. She co-founded and was elected and re-elected as the first Democratic co-chair of the Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues, and wrote many laws, including extending the deadline for ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment and the Rape Privacy Act. She was the first member of Congress to expose the U.S. government's inaction on Nazi war criminals living in America and spearheaded the effort to bring them to justice. When elected, she was the youngest woman to be elected to Congress, a record she held for 42 years. She subsequently became the first woman elected district attorney in New York City, serving 8 years as DA of Kings County, Brooklyn. And she also was the first and only woman to be elected Comptroller of New York City. In 2013, U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel appointed Liz to the Response Systems to Adult Sexual Assault Crimes panel, which reviewed the handling of sexual assault in the military and developed reformist recommendations. She's written a number of books and many articles, and she's received many honors and 4 honorary degrees, including from Smith College, for her significant contributions to American politics. And she's a happy recidivist to this program. With great pleasure, I re-welcome Liz Holtzman. Liz, welcome back, you recidivist, you, to Women's Media Center Live. It's always so good to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's always great to be on your program, Robin, and I'm very honored.
It's a voice I at least certainly, and my listeners can trust. So let's plunge in. Okay, so by a very slim, razor-thin margin, the Republicans have the House through a 15-ballot debacle with Kevin McCarthy. What did you think of that went on for days and nights and days and nights?
Well, I mean, it's horrifying that you have the Republican Party, actually, this little tail of the Republican Party, the extreme right wing, wagging that whole dog, and the rest of the. So that was really the horror of it, and the horror of it too was what Kevin McCarthy had to give away in order to win the support.
And we don't even know the half of it, do we? We don't even know.
No. Yeah. No. So we don't, I mean, we know some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it is that he's removed Schiff and Swalwell from the Intelligence Committee. Mm-hmm. Some of it is giving important positions to completely undeserving and people who are not even competent, people who are bigots, important positions like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, this is a woman who said that Jews were responsible for the forest fires in California because they were using laser beams from space. Now, how they got laser beams into space, we're not even going to discuss. But this is a person now who is a very important person in the House Republican Party. Yeah. This is shocking. Mm. I mean, to have someone spouting that kind of anti-Semitism plus and bigotry and nonsense.
And pure crazy, too. Just pure...
Yes, crazy nonsense to be in a position of power, authority, homeland security. Really?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just shocking to me that this is where we are, but this is where we are as a country. Yeah. That the extreme right wing has been empowered through social media, through Trump, through right wing media, and through Russian interference, mm-hmm. Has been empowered in a way that's frightening for our country, for our democracy, for our future, for our nation's future. You can't have government run by nincompoops and by bigots. It's not going to make America great again or great in any way.
Oh, yeah. It's a very strange situation. I mean, what? Give me your thoughts on George Santos.
The word "thought" and George Santos in the same sentence doesn't work.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, what do I think? It's again part of the campaign process, which I blame the Democrats as much as anybody else for what happened here. The fact that they did not do the research on Santos's background is unforgivable. I just remember when I first ran for Congress in 1972, when I ran against the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, we did some pretty careful research on his voting record before we started the campaign in order to decide whether to run.
Right.
And we found out that he had been fine. Not only was he a big supporter of the war in Vietnam, this was during the Vietnam War, but that he received huge campaign contributions from some of the biggest defense contractors who were making gazillions out of the Vietnam War. So we knew we had a strong issue against him. They're not doing their job. You have to be able to, and you have to be willing to, do the things that are normal in a campaign, which is to understand the background, the record of the person who's running, because that person's never going to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
They're going to try to paint themselves in the best possible light and conceal things from the voters that the voters should know. It's your responsibility. So you had the Democratic Campaign Committee, House Campaign, Congressional Campaign Committee. Where were they? You had the New York State Democratic Party. Where was it? The head of the party was in Nassau County, where Santos was running.
My God.
You had a prior candidate who was running for Congress who also didn't look at his record. And you had this present candidate who said, we don't have to do it. Well, he wasn't an experienced candidate. And it was a big, big mistake on his part, as well as they're all responsible. We have to have a Democratic Party, both on the national level and on the local level, that knows the basics of how to run a campaign. And one of the basics is, who is your opponent? And what does the opponent stand for? And what has the opponent done? And what is the opponent's background? And most important is follow the money. The French say cherchez la femme, but it's really cherchez the dollar.
Yeah.
Look for the money.
And this guy is so far out an extreme liar that it just takes your breath away. I mean, well, how does that kind of ground up oversight, to reverse my directions, begin? Because if it's the Democrats' fault as well, which somehow I had not realized it, maybe I was giving knee-jerk responses, probably I was, but it didn't occur to me. I thought, what the hell is wrong with the Republicans that they didn't catch?
Yes, of course. I'm not saying...
Catch
look,
this. No,
I'm talking about what I, as a Democrat, have some say in, which is...
Precisely.
I don't really have a say in that anymore. But the Democrats have a responsibility, and the candidate running in opposition to him had responsibility. There's no question about that. But the Republican Party, what were they doing?
Yeah.
I mean, they were glad to have someone run. I guess they didn't pay any attention to it. I have to hand it to them. They have called for his resignation, and they've pulled no punches in criticizing him. So I think that's very clear, and I respect what they've done about that. But they fell down on the job too. But every candidate who runs for office has a responsibility to educate the voters about not only what they stand for, but what the difference with their opponent.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm reminded of something that Bella would say. Bella always said, Bella Abzug, she always said Martin, her husband of many years, had told her, and I'm just going to tell it to you, your standards are showing. Because this is what you would do. It is not necessarily what others would do, Liz. I mean,
no, people cut corners.
Yeah,
they don't really take a hard look. And I think there are other factors here that are at stake.
Like
First of all, the media, the press. We in New York and probably elsewhere, the local press has become diminished.
Yeah.
And in many cases non-existent. Actually, some of this story was broken by a very itty-bitty paper on Long Island, but it was not picked up by the main media. The New York Times is a national and international paper. It doesn't pay attention necessarily to what happens in a congressional.
When did that come out? When did that, during the campaign? Did that come out?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Mm-hmm. It was a small little, I don't know if it's a weekly or daily, but there was a local paper in the I believe it's in the congressional district that exposed, I'm not saying everything,
right,
but some of the things. But it never got picked up. That
journalist must be climbing walls with frustration. Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole country should be, because when you have someone like Santos in government, a complete and total liar, a fraud, a trickster, maybe even someone who's committed crimes in connection with this race by his filings, federal campaign filings. I mean, what example does that set about our government, about who's in it and what they stand for? I mean, the thing that's so shocking not shocking, I'm not beyond being shocked, but what's just so disturbing to me is you have Kevin McCarthy saying, well, we have to remove Adam Schiff, who won such national applause for his outstanding work on the Intelligence Committee in connection with the impeachment of Trump, and Eric Swalwell, both of them former federal prosecutors, people of integrity, of honor, of capability, their intelligence. And Kevin McCarthy says, oh, it's a matter of integrity that they get off that committee. And he puts Mr. Santos on a committee, any committee. I mean, the hypocrisy is just overwhelming. I mean, if he cared about integrity, Santos wouldn't be on any committee in Congress, and he'd be calling immediately for the Ethics Committee to get a move on to investigate Santos.
Yeah. Do you think that this is going to be it for the next 2 years? That it'll be one after another. The committees investigating Biden's.
That's what they're going to do.
Sure, Biden investigation, and they don't quite know what to do now that everybody's papers are, now that classified documents are found in everybody's home. So they might have to leave that one alone, Pence as well. But Biden they're going to hammer on, and we're going to hear an awful lot of Jim Jordan, which makes me nauseated just to think of. And that's going to be the case? It's going to be like Benghazi, Biden, you think?
Well, I think the first thing that they're going to have to deal with, I mean, the answer to your question is yes, but I think the first thing they're going to deal with, and this is something that's dangerous for them, is the debt ceiling.
I was just going to ask about that.
It's a very, very complex issue. Most Americans don't understand it. But the federal government can run a deficit, is allowed to run a deficit. And so because the deficits have built up, there's an outstanding debt. In other words, it's like the mortgage, except it keeps growing.
Yeah.
And we have to pay it. We have to pay it because the integrity of the United States dollar depends on it. Mm-hmm. And if the debts of the United States aren't paid, and the Constitution requires that they be paid, mm-hmm. if they're not paid, the whole economic system would crash. Our system, the worldwide system, because every country and investors all over the world depend on the word of the United States that it's going to repay the bonds that it issues, the Treasury bonds that it issues. Well, if it doesn't repay them and the word of the United States is worthless, a couple things going to happen. Nobody's going to want to buy our bonds, so the interest rate's going to go up. That's going to affect taxpayers immediately because it means that the budget is going to be even more out of whack because more money has to go to interest, which means less money for programs that Americans need. Okay, so that's one thing that's going to happen. The other thing is that if the federal government won't have the money it needs to pay the bills, which is, to pay for Social Security, to pay for Medicare, to pay for Medicaid, to build the roads.
So is this just another brandishing of, whatever, MAGA manhood or something to say we're going to...
Yeah, well, yes, it is. It's kind of, over the past years, particularly, I guess since the turn of the century, 21st century, the Republicans, Democrats have not done this, but the Republicans have used the leverage of saying that they're not going to vote for the increase in the debt ceiling to extract
what they want.
Extract goodies, what they want, to blackmail the American people and the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. So, but the interesting thing is that this time what they want, and they've made it explicit, is to cut Social Security and to cut Medicare. Even Trump said it wasn't a good idea. He said, do not do that. But there's no way that they can get enough money to make any difference by this posturing, they meaning the Republicans, unless they cut the defense budget and Social Security and Medicare. Those are the biggest expenditures. So if they want to show that they've cut the budget, that's what they have to do. And they've said they want to do the cutting of Social Security and Medicare. Well, I don't know. We've got an election next year. Not this year, but next year.
Are they?
And I think that the Republicans, if they continue in this and they force an economic crash because they want to cut Medicare and Social Security, and then they're going to not only lose the election, they're going to lose control of the House, control of they don't have control of the Senate, but it's going to be devastating for the Republican Party. So, that's what they're walking into, but they're I don't know whether they're just stupid, uninformed, or what. But this is cutting off your nose to spite your face, and this is creating a huge campaign issue for the Democrats, but of course, at the expense of wrecking our economy and hurting the American, both taxpayer and the American people.
They also seem to be blissfully unaware of the fact that their own right-wing constituency are always saying, hands off from the government. I don't want the government meddling in my affairs, but don't touch my Medicare.
Right.
Don't touch my Social Security. Seemingly unaware that those come from, the government. So they are not putting two and two together and coming up with four. I mean,
well, they're not even putting 1 and 1 together and coming up with 2, which is even easier than 2 and 2 equals 4.
Yeah, that's pretty much of a challenge.
So, I mean, if Trump could see that this is a dangerous position to take,
yeah,
then you know that it's pretty obvious, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the Republican Party in big time because, the Republicans have been able to cover over their economic plan by focusing on parental control of education, by focusing on abortion, by focusing on gay rights, by focusing on issues that most Americans don't feel are the critical issues for them. They care about having an economy that works, economic opportunity. Of course, those other things may be important to many people, but they have tried to camouflage their plan, which is the Republicans have tried to camouflage their plan, which is to decimate Social Security, decimate Medicare. I mean, they want to undo it. They don't want Social Security. They want to take that away from people. So, I mean, most Americans don't know that that's their plan. Now it's going to be out in the open, and they're going to have to vote on it. So I think this is going to be a very interesting, let's put it that way.
Well,
and that's a Chinese curse. May we live in
that's right.
interesting times.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be a very interesting position they've put themselves in.
Well, that's almost heartening in a tragic way, if you know what I mean,
Right.
Because it gives me something ironically to look forward to, but because they will just have overreached themselves and gotten a very, very, very bad crick in the neck. I was going to ask you about the debt ceiling, and you have explained it very well. Tell me another thing. Let's talk for a bit about the Democratic leadership. What do you think of Hakeem Jeffries and the whole turnover? I mean, it did seem that Pelosi promised she wasn't going to run again, and now she's not, and she hasn't. But the entire leadership turning over, Hoyer, everyone, is very dramatic and quite, it seemed to me, quite meaningful. And that now for the first time we have a white woman and a Latino man and an African-American man in the leadership of the Democratic Party in the House. What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, Nancy gave her word, plus she felt it was the right time, and she did it. I mean, it's not as though, a couple things. First of all, Nancy is not going very far. She's still on the House floor, and she's still available to ask advice from. So it's not as though, they're completely bereft of any advice that they needed. Steny Hoyer and Mr. Clyburn are also around, so that's not going to really be an issue. Right. It's not as though the people who are stepping into their shoes aren't experienced as well. I mean, Jeffries is very, he's been around for a while. He's been in government. He was in state government, in the state assembly, and then he's been in Congress for, I think, at least 8 years. And he's also been in the leadership in some of that time. People have seen him during the impeachment. He was one of the impeachment managers. He's a very intelligent man. He's knowledgeable. He's experienced. He's very careful, thoughtful person. I think we're doing just fine. I think he's done just fine. I think the fact that he was able to get unanimity among all the Democrats for the leadership team that he picked, I think it's a very good sign of his leadership so far. So I feel pretty confident that the D's are in good hands in the House.
And what do you think should be, in an ideal world, which this so is not, but even in an ideal world, should be our strategy as progressives in the next 2 years? Is there a strategy, or do we just tread water and wait till the election and put our muscle into the election, obviously? But I mean, by tread water, I don't mean do nothing.
Right. I think one of the sad factors that we now know was that there were the polling, some of the polling that was done in connection with the midterm elections was dishonest, maybe too strong a word, but raised a lot of questions. There were some very, very right-wing polling that was not polling operations that were not experienced, let's put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and the results, I'm not saying deliberately skewed, but came out in a way that was skewed. That skewed the whole polling, because sometimes what happens is that 538 and some of these other groups, they combine all the polls
Right.
and come up with an average. And so what happened was that people thought that the Democrats were going to do very poorly in the midterms. They did.
That's why they were so surprised.
They were doing they did amazingly well, and I think there were people who didn't contribute to campaigns or didn't participate in campaigns, either through contributions or through volunteer efforts, because they thought they didn't have a chance. I mean, just think about Boebert, how close that race was.
Right.
So I think that the message for us next time is to be much more optimistic, regardless of what the polls say, about our chances, and go and work for, whether it's volunteering or making contributions, whether it's a $5 contribution or $500 contribution, whatever you can afford, start supporting those efforts now. I mean, this is going to be vital. And I think the other thing is to look not just at federal races, but at local races. Just came to my attention, for example, that there's a very important race in Wisconsin now, which could affect the outcome of the Supreme Court, the composition of the Supreme Court. If there's a Democrat
of the state Supreme of the state Supreme Court,
of the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin, if a Democrat wins, what will be affected is the very extreme gerrymandering that has taken place in Wisconsin. So that's something that will affect not only the state of the state itself, but the country.
Sure.
So these are things that people have to pay very close attention to. So if you live in Wisconsin, get out and work in this race.
Yeah,
and if not, go ahead and make a small contribution if you can't afford more to this race. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, I didn't even think about giving any support to the anti-Boebert forces, because I said, oh, it's hopeless. But it wasn't hopeless. And I know that Democrats just, said, well, it's, we're not going to win, so why bother, and so forth and so on. I think what we have to say is we don't know the whole truth, and let's give it everything we have, and don't get demoralized by polls when this could be part of, I won't say conspiracy, but part of an effort to undermine and make the Democratic vote seem much smaller than it really is.
Yeah, and it just drains the energy out of campaigns. Then I mean, it people say, oh God, just great candidate, but
right.
Correct. And
Correct.
It's maddening. It's absolutely maddening if you're working for a campaign or working with a campaign or contributing to a campaign to be trying to convince everybody, and when they say, well, it's hopeless. I mean, it's not hopeless, and it's not. And the hopelessness or the hope lies in your own hands. If there's enough
Correct.
of you, and you got to make more of you. It's just. Well, my blood has been revved up, which you always do. You always do. You are just remarkable. And is there a new book in your future? She said, hopefully. She
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet.
I did write an introduction to one of the versions of the January 6th report, and so if anybody still hasn't bought a copy of it, you can buy my version of that report with my introduction to it.
Very good.
It's published by Sky Horse Press.
Okay, very good indeed. I'm so glad that that's out. And anybody, but that was another example of people saying, oh, the reports are coming too late, and what's the point? And the reports obviously, well, first of all, the televising of the committee was electric, and the reports have an amazing impact. And these things make a difference.
Yes.
You
There's
know?
no question about it.
So,
There's no question about it.
and you can't open your mouth without making a difference. So I thank you for all of these wonderful insights and thoughts and inveighings, which have given us some guidance on how to proceed from here. Onward. Oh, thanks an awful lot, Liz, and come back again soon, okay?
Thanks, Robin, for having me, and thanks to your listeners as well.
We have to take one more break here, but then I'll be back right away with those fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Every man may be a fighting word. A recent teaser ad for the New Yorker magazine hypes a piece titled, "What's the Matter with Men?" The teaser goes on to read as follows, quote, "In South Korea, girls have been outperforming boys in school. In Sweden, researchers say they are facing a pojkkrisen, or boy crisis. And in the United States, the sex ratio at colleges is nearing 2 female undergraduates for every 1 male. Is the second sex becoming the better half?" Idris Kaloun asks in a probing piece in this week's issue. Kaloun reviews Of Boys and Men, the latest book by the inequality scholar Richard V. Reeves, who writes that in our modern age, working for gender equality means focusing on boys rather than girls. Period. Close quote. Gee, good to know. Every so often, in fact far too often, this kind of message appears in both reputable and disreputable periodicals, and I, like other feminists who are in touch with the real world, yawn and continue our work. But this one made my teeth grind, which gives me quite a headache, because it happened to coincide with statistics from that real world about mass murder shootings in the USA just since the first of the year. There have been almost 40 mass murder shootings, and January isn't even over yet. Last year, there were 40,000 such shootings resulting in death. And since I'm bloody tired of writing polemics and articles and appeals about the gun lobby and the NRA and congressional culpability and this general manhood-obsessive madness, this time the scream emerged in the form of a prose poem titled Thoughts and Prayers. Bang, bang, you're dead. How shocking. Who's surprised? We send you thoughts and prayers. Domestic shootings, campus shootings, workplace shootings, school shootings, church shootings, marital shootings, domestic terrorism shootings, foreign terrorism shootings, nightclub shootings, teen shootings, racial shootings, sexual shootings, movie theater shootings, multiple shootings, beauty parlor shootings, parking lot shootings, supermarket shootings, massage parlor shootings. Bang, 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 one a day keeps sanity away. Hate crimes. What isn't a hate crime? Hey, let's ask the NRA. How many kids did you kill today? Question. What is America? Answer. A country with more guns than people. Question. What happens from gun violence? Answer. 12 children die each day. Question. Where are guns used most? Answer. Guns are used in intimate partner violence more than any other weapon. Question. Who gets the shortest end of the stick? Answer. American Indian, Alaskan Native, Black and Latina women, as well as pregnant and postpartum women. Question. Are the shooters all male? Answer. Bang, bang, condolences, balloons, bang goes the balloon, grieving with you, bouquets of flowers, rotting in the street. Thoughts and prayers, the community, just devastated, found a cache of weapons and ammunition, one consistency. Candles flickering in the dark. The families, friends, colleagues, co-workers. Press conference at 8 a.m. The mayor, the police chief, the governor, the panel, the experts, the commentators, traumatized. Purchased legally. I can't imagine. Bang, bang. I can't conceive of who would have thought that NRA. Our hearts go out to you. Such a nice guy. Left Facebook messages. How could he have? Bang, bang. A lovely man. Don't understand. Seemed so quiet and shy. Purchased legally. The boy next door. Vigils, songs, prayers, open carry, concealed carry, flowers, rotting, funerals, families, open grief, concealed grief, the politicians must do something, definitely need to act, condolences, thoughts and prayers, problems not guns, hell, arm teachers and preachers, arm everyone, bang, 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 problems not NRA, purchased legally, suspect dead, suspect in custody, intensive search for shooter. The incels, involuntary celibates, taking their revenge on women. The copycats, emulators seeking their 15 minutes of fame. The aggrieved, the bigots, the racists, the sexists, the nice guys, the veterans, former Marines, soldiers, cops. Bang, bang, purchased legally. Always a loner, always so friendly, can't ever be the same, can't feel safe anywhere anymore. Always seemed peculiar. Seemed such a normal NRA. Bang, 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 you're dead. Left quite a trail. History of domestic violence, history of marital violence, history of intimate partner violence. One single consistency. Well, it's mostly crazies. Well, it's only troubled teenagers. Well, it's just dropouts and retirees. The 6-year-old boy. The 72-year-old man. One consistency. It isn't every male. It isn't every man. But is it every man? Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter for now, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag Fighting Words. That's our show for this week. We'll be on hiatus next week, but after that, we'll be right back here. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram at @TheRobinMorgan, and you can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book of poems, Dark Matter, and my brand new novel, Parallax, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.